Greetings, history enthusiasts. Today we embark on a journey back to April 5th, 1982, a day that witnessed a significant event amidst the tumultuous landscape of Afghanistan. The Soviet army, in an ambitious endeavor to dismantle the Mujahideen insurgency, launched an operation near the remote settlement of Robert Jali. This was their largest airborne operation up to that time. There was just one problem. They hit the wrong target. That day, Russians faced adverse conditions. Their operations failed back to back in that single day. Yet, they did not lose courage in the face of adversity. Welcome to Resonant News. Robert Jali, situated just a stone's throw away from the borders with Iran and Pakistan, was also called the Bermuda Triangle by Russian pilots. On that day, it witnessed a monumental military operation. At the crack of dawn, a fleet of 79 helicopters descended upon the Afghan landscape, carrying over 600 Soviet soldiers primed for battle. This was slated to be the largest air mobile operation since the Soviet invasion commenced in Afghanistan. However, in the midst of chaos of conflict, a grave error occurred. Instead of targeting the Mujahideen base, the Soviet forces mistakenly assaulted an ordinary asphalt factory in Iran, casting a shadow of confusion over otherwise meticulously planned operation. The Soviet force in Afghanistan, who had formidable strength and rigorous training backing them, soon encountered the harsh reality of unconventional warfare in Afghanistan. Unlike the conventional battles that the Soviets were accustomed to, Afghanistan presented a nebulous front line where the Afghan Mujahideen, well versed in guerrilla tactics, posed a formidable challenge. Aware of their disadvantage in direct confrontations, the Mujahideen relied heavily on hit-and-run tactics, disrupting supply lines, conducting raids before retreating to their concealed sanctuaries. In an attempt to stem the tide of insurgent activity, the Soviets sought to cut the Mujahideen's access to weapon supplies. Targeting their caravans, transit bases, and training camps became a strategic imperative. One such base, nestled near the abandoned settlement of Robert Jali, stood at the junction of Afghan, Iranian, and Pakistani borders. Soviet military intelligence received the intelligence regarding this large Mujahideen base, which housed warehouses stocked with weapons, ammunition, and narcotics exchanged for arms from neighboring Iran and Pakistan. The execution of plan, however, was fraught with challenges. The distance from the rebel stronghold proved too great for the Red Army's helicopters to traverse without refueling. Thus, it was decided on April 4th, a contingent of 600 Soviet troops, including the Spetsnaz Special Forces, would convene at a rendezvous point approximately 30 miles from Robert Jali for refueling. The ensuing morning was slated for a coordinated assault. A dozen Sukhoi Su-17 fighter bombers would pummel the Mujahideen camp, followed by a fleet of 60 military Mi-8 transport helicopters to overrun and capture the base. Yet, as fate would have it, the operation encountered a lot of obstacles. A sandstorm descended upon the departing helicopters, forcing them to disperse into smaller groups and navigate independently to the rendezvous point. Darkness descended before the last of them arrived and forced them to spend a night refueling in the tumultuous storm. At the dawn the following day, the helicopter force, led by Colonel Aprilkin, set course for rebel base. Meanwhile, the Su-17s dropped parachute flares to mark the target location. However, misfortune struck as some flares veered off the course, carried by desert winds across to the Iranian border. Despite the discrepancies, Colonel Aprilkin, lacking prior experience in the region, pressed onward and convinced their proximity to the target. Discrepancies between the terrain and the Soviet maps were noted, yet Colonel Aprilkin, spotting a cluster of buildings in the distance, erroneously identified it as a target and ordered an immediate attack. Upon reaching the target, disembarking from their helicopter, the Soviet assault troopers swiftly overran the compound. It was a 17 minutes long operation. At the end of it, they were convinced this was not an enemy territory. They had inadvertently seized an ordinary civilian asphalt factory inside Iran. As General Tabunshkov surveyed the unfolding chaos from air, he realized the gravity of situation. The Soviets had breached Iranian territory. Frantically, he ordered an immediate evacuation, but it was too late. The Iranian fighter jets descended upon the scene, unleashing havoc upon the stranded Soviet helicopters. Meanwhile, the Soviet MiG-23s, which had been assigned to give air cover to the strike force, had been given ordered by the general not to fire on the Iranians, and they maintained their distance. The Iranian Air Force managed to destroy or damage a few Mi-8s. By this time, a group of Iranian army tanks was approaching and the Soviets held their fire as the Iranians pulled into the burning compound. Issue was resolved and things were de-escalated quickly. Soviet soldiers retreated in their helicopters. However, undeterred by the setback, the Soviet officers resolved to regroup and continue their mission against the Afghan Mujahideen in Robert Jali. Thus, another airstrike was launched on the Mujahideen camp on the same day, yielding very little success as the insurgents had already dispersed. They had heard about the botched-up operation in Iran. The Russians meanwhile found out that with their unexpected detour to Iran, their helicopters were once again low on fuel and they called in a number of Mi-6 tankers to bring more gas. One of them was ambushed and shot down by the Mujahideen on the way, and one of the Mi-8s then crashed on the way home. It was a long day for the Russians. The saving grace was that they did not lose any soldiers on their side. Though the two Iranian guards at the asphalt factory weren't as lucky, they were killed by the Soviet soldiers' mistake. And after this incident, Russia and Iran only grew closer. As we draw the curtain on this chapter of history, let us reflect on the lessons learned and the sacrifices made. Join us next time as we unravel more tales from the annals of military history.